It's, oh my gosh, it's happening now. And it's like, no, this is not a 5 alarm fire.
Welcome to the Compliant AF podcast, where healthcare compliance isn't just a checklist, it's a competitive advantage.
I'm Amy Wood, CEO of Copperpenny Consulting, a cybersecurity and HIPAA compliance geek who thinks encryption is awesome.
And I'm Kelley, CEO of Clinical HR, fractional HR business partner and HR nerd who is weirdly passionate about employment policy.
If you're a dental or healthcare leader who's tired of check-the-box compliance and wants to actually understand what the rules are and how to build a practice that doesn't live in fear of audits or lawsuits,
you are in the right place. We are digging into the stuff that keeps practice leaders up at night.
We'll break down the boring, call out the BS, and share real strategies with a little snark and a whole lot of caffeine.
This isn't legal advice. We are not your lawyers.
We are two consultants who have seen way too many practices get in trouble because no one explained the rules in a way that actually made sense or made them care.
But since this is a compliance podcast, the content in this podcast or any associated clips is for informational purposes only and does not constitute legal, financial, medical, tax, or regulatory advice. We are not attorneys. Clinical HR LLC and Copperpenny Consulting LLC are not legal firms, and listening to this podcast does not create a client relationship. Always consult a qualified professional advisor for guidance specific to your situation.
So buckle up, because boring compliance just got compliant AF.
You know, the holidays are coming up, and this always is a busy time for me. I call this my handbook hell season because it usually is. Everybody wants their update before January 1st. And then at the same time, you also have a lot of other issues that are coming down from the HR perspective of, you know, trying to hire during this time of year. What do we do with holiday bonuses? What are we doing with holiday parties? Do we get our boss a gift? All of those little things that pop up as kind of a circulating conversation fourth quarter every year.
So let's talk about it.
Let's talk about it. Oh my goodness. So from the compliance perspective, you know, there's not a lot that you have to do when it comes to holidays. Holidays are one of those things that can be offered. It needs to be, from a best practices standpoint, something that is given to everybody that is similarly situated. If you're going to do paid holidays, you know, a lot of times we see that like hygiene, for example, gets left out of a lot of benefits that are maybe given to assistants and administrative team members. But from a best practices standpoint, having it across the board to similarly situated employees is going to be your friend when it comes to the compliance side. But that's really all there is, other than you need to do what your handbook says. Assuming you have a handbook, which this time of year, I often find practices that don't and want to start the new year fresh, which is a grand goal.
Good plan. It's a good plan.
It is.
But I would ask, what about the just being a good person, the ethical question of valuing one person very differently than another?
Yes. And the other ethics side to that for me is that if you're going to close your practice and not give people the opportunity to work, they should have a mechanism to earn pay. It's one of the reasons I advocate for holidays being paid immediately upon hire for your non-exempt team members, even though somebody hasn't been with you, long term. I make a post about this every year, so anybody's always welcome to go see my page, or probably you could search on Facebook, Kelley and holidays, and it would probably come up from one of the years, including this year. I've already posted it this year because it is something that I definitely feel strongly about. I've really noticed a trend lately, though, of practices that are taking off full weeks around this time of year. That is great for the team, but they do it in a way where the team is not getting paid in some cases. Some practices will. They'll call it their winter break and they'll pay for the full week between, Christmas and New Year. Some will say use their PTO if they still have it. But whenever you don't have PTO available because it's a newer team member, or their PTO is only state mandated sick leave for the states that require that, you're closing your practice for a full week in some cases and not giving them the opportunity to earn income. That part can be slightly problematic from the sense that they can generally go and file in some states for unemployment. Some states will have a waiting week where they wouldn't get it for that, but you do have kind of that general what do you do whenever you're literally effectively furloughing your team for a week?
Right.
And I always get the pushback from practice leaders on that. They say, "Oh no, our team loves it." Oh yeah, but they'd probably love to get paid more.
Especially end of year and Christmas time and not working. Oh gosh, yeah, no thanks. That sounds like a nightmare. I would actually kind of look at it as you have a certain compensation package for your team. I have employees, I have people that work for me, and I have for almost 20 years now. And well, not quite, but pretty close. And over that time, I realized it's not just the benefits package. It's not just the compensation, the hourly wage, the salary, whatever it may be. It's the intrinsic value that they feel valued. So, I mean, I've always taken the stance of, oh, you can't come in. Can you make up the hours later? Can you do something else that we need? Yeah. Oh, we're closed for 2 weeks. Can you come in and clean the office? Can you like come in and, I don't know, up
Some
your
training,
compliance programs?
right? There's some training they could be doing. Yeah, this year, with it falling on a Thursday, I've had at least one practice that I've talked to, and I know that they're a startup and they're, going to have their challenges with paying, period. Uh,
Yeah.
but they're like, I'm not going to pay for certain holidays, but I may have them come in the day after. I'm like, nobody's coming in the Friday after Christmas for dentistry. Um, okay, you're really going to bring your team away rather than just giving them the 4-day weekend and paying for one of the days. You're going to bring them in on a Friday. Okay, that's a choice. And it's up to the practice to make that choice. They can. I'm not saying they can't. From a
Right.
compliance perspective, they can. But you're right. From a culture perspective, I really strongly feel that, like, versus PTO, which is something that the employee can choose to take or not, that a holiday whenever you're closing the practice and not allowing people the opportunity to come in and earn their paycheck, if they don't have that provided for them, they're basically taking a pay cut so that you can have a day off. And so I'm not a huge fan of that type of policy personally. And I agree with you that if you're going to look at total compensation and take all of the days that they would have otherwise worked, say that everybody worked every single day of the year for 52 weeks a year, that's the compensation that you're budgeting for. So how is providing a paid holiday really that much different? Because you already
Right.
should have budgeted for it.
I've always paid holiday pay. I mean, I guess I kind of looked at all the things I'm supposed to do and just said, that sounds stupid. That sounds like I'll be a jerk if I don't do that. And I'm just not doing that because I'm a good person and I have good people that work for me. And they see value in that. So they don't go looking for other jobs. They work really hard. And when they want a day off, they take a day off. And if they want something, they bring it to the table, and I make them feel good about that they have a say in how things are going. But at the end of the day, they know I have ultimate right of refusal. So that's the one thing that is very, very clear in my organization. But I know a lot of other organizations, they're just not like that. That's also come with leadership training that I've had to do to be a better leader, and also to have very strong people that work for me to say, no, you're not doing that anymore because Amy, you suck at that. And I'm just going to take it from you. And thank goodness I have people like that, because that also makes me a better leader. So I'd say look for the intrinsic value, leaders,
Well,
and make sure that your people are awesome.
and you say that, and that's one of the things I will constantly tell clients whenever we're building out policies for their employee handbook, whenever it's policies for their benefits package, whatever the situation is that we're building these policies, benefits packages in this case, for the team members that we want to keep, not the ones that we want to let go. And so if you've got somebody in their first 90 days and you're saying, well, hey, we're glad you're here, but we're not really sure how long you're going to stay. So we're going to go take a paid day, and you're not really one of us yet. So you're just going to take a pay cut instead. But just really so happy to see you.
That's a great way to run somebody off.
It's not really the best first impression, personally, for me. I also feel like that's something that can be problematic for trying to hire fourth quarter, period. Because if you've got team members that are amazing, they're probably already working for somebody else. And if they're working for somebody else, getting a couple weeks of PTO and paid holidays and end of year bonus and whatever else that they're getting in their package, they're probably not going to leave fourth quarter. They're going to wait until they get their paid time and their benefits and whatever else can get paid out at the end of that year, and they'll probably wait till January to leave. And so it can be very much a struggle if you're not both doing it and being very clear that this is something that you do, to offer paid time off during the holiday, even during the first 90 days. So I tell practices that are hiring this time of year, make sure if that's something that you offer, that you put that on your job post, that holiday is paid immediately upon hire. Yes, you will get paid for Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year, whatever your holidays are. We're not gonna.
Yeah, I always do that. And for for some of us, the phones aren't ringing, the emails aren't coming in. That is the time to get all your back end running the business, like working on the business, the stuff you ignored all year long because you were busy and you just didn't want to do it. So that's the perfect time. I know you should obviously spend the actual holidays with your family. And whether you like them or not, you're supposed to do that. Be with the people, your chosen family or your blood family, whichever works for you. I tend to do both. I am doing Friendsgiving and actual Thanksgiving.
Oh,
So I get to
bless you.
cook Friendsgiving is going to be a blast. And I have the biggest house out of my entire family, so I get to be the hub for all the family things. And my parents live on the property as well, so they just walk over and it's fine. But yeah, it's just I feel like there's this separation of you have the business part of run your business, be a leader. It's, run it like a business, not a hobby. But then at the same time, in order to have a good culture, people are told, oh, it needs to be a family. And sometimes family is crappy to each other.
Yeah, they are.
And I feel like sometimes the business and the team members, they're crappy to each other too.
Yeah, I was never a huge fan of that dynamic or calling it that dynamic because you don't have to fire your family. You don't have to write them up and discipline them and you get to choose who's in it, but you don't have to pay them a salary every week. So yeah, I'm never a fan of that one particularly. I will say though that there are some practices that have employees that come in and that they do work between the holidays every year, and that's because they handle more emergencies. That's actually a really great time to pick up some new patients because some offices are going to be closed in your area, most likely, unless you're in a rural setting. And that maybe you are the only one that's available to take an emergency, and that's a great time to pick up extra revenue before the end of the
Yeah.
year. Some also are PPO, and you've got a lot of practices that are sending out those letters right now saying use your benefits before the end of the year. And we all know the patients are not going to do that. They're going to wait until December 14th and then decide to call
Yes.
and try to make that appointment to use that benefit. So there are plenty that refuse to close that week because they know that. And so there's ways that you can still give them some time, and take other days off, maybe take some time off in
Yeah.
January, but still giving them that holiday and making sure that they're taken care of, I think, during that season is very, very valid. I also the holiday season and the end of year, like you said, kind of brings up the idea of bonuses and what do we do for those, and what is the compliance around giving bonuses? Should we give them cash? Should we put it through payroll? Should we write them a check? Should we give them gift cards? Where does that fall? And then there's some other aspects that people forget to ask about. They don't even know to ask about. From the compliance perspective, bonuses, whether it's paid in cash, whether it's a check, whether it's poker chips, whether it's a gift card, the IRS does not deem it to be impractical to account for because you know what the dollar amount is. And so everything needs to end up on that W-2. Even if you're planning on, handwriting a check so that you can put it in a card and physically give it to your team members, that's something that still needs to be shared with your accountant. It can be run through as a grossed up bonus check where you just kind of do a pay stub for it that is you covering the taxes 100% rather than splitting it with the team. And they can actually run it to make sure it gets on the W-2 for the next year. It just would be basically an I've already paid it out voided check that they receive. So they at least get the stub for it and it's appropriately accounted for. Gifts are different. If there are some things that are de minimis under certain amounts, there's definitely some things like you used to do like the coupons to go to the grocery store to be able to get yourself a turkey. Like those are de minimis. Those are not things that have to be accounted for. If it's something very expensive, it probably should be, but I don't know that everybody is 100% following that standard. But I spent a number of years working for a CPA firm that served dental and medical practices, and this was one of the things that we would constantly have to answer this time of year of how do we actually pay out bonuses from
Mhm.
that perspective and remain compliant. So I always like to remind people of that.
Oh, I did that all the time. So that's a really easy thing to do. And one of the first things my CPA said after she told me I couldn't write off all my clothing unless it was branded, which made me very, very sad. And I still cringe every time she says that to me. But after that was we have to track what we give them. So it's just something we do now. It's tracked, it's all taken care of.
So we're not CPAs and we're not giving financial advice, of course. And so I will save that rabbit hole for a different episode. On the topic of bonuses, though, one of the things that has come up over the past several years that I realize people aren't aware of is the concept of discretionary versus non-discretionary bonuses. And discretionary bonuses, every time I say this, every time I have this conversation, I have people push back and they say, well, bonuses are my discretion to give, period. They're all discretionary bonuses. Not really. Not according to the actual definition of them. Holiday bonuses, how most practices will do this, are effectively the discretionary bonuses. It's not something that's based on a structure in most cases. It's just hey, we have some extra. We want to appreciate our team. We're going to give them a bonus. That's typically a discretionary bonus. The ones that are given, throughout the year, they don't have anything tied to them. Like the team doesn't have to accomplish a certain goal. Now, if you're doing your end of year bonus and it's, if we reach this goal, it's this much, and the team knows about it, that's different. But if it's just kind of hey, it's the holiday season and I want to give this much per team member because we did really well this year, and they don't know about it, it's something that's, just not a gift. It's still a bonus, but something that is really truly discretionary that they didn't have to earn in some way. That's something that is in a different class than what we would call the non-discretionary bonuses. Now, the thing about non-discretionary, the ones that you see that say either every quarter or every month, whatever the rolling 90-day period is, however you structure this, if they have a bonus that they have had to earn, there's certain metrics and they get a certain percentage if they reach a certain milestone, and maybe they get a little more if they reach a different milestone. Those are the ones that, on a rotating basis that has a certain period associated with it and certain metrics for them to reach to be able to earn it. That's considered non-discretionary. The thing about that is that non-discretionary bonuses are owed overtime premiums. If
Oh.
they have worked overtime at any point during whatever period that you're accounting for, whether it's end of year, end of quarter, end of month, end of week, whatever it is, if they've worked overtime, they're actually owed an overtime premium on that bonus. Nobody pays attention to this. I don't know that anybody really knows very much about this. I've shared it a couple of
I've
times.
never heard it.
No.
No. I mean, my people don't work overtime, so it doesn't apply, but
Fair. And that's what some practices say. Well, we don't do that anyways. Well, sometimes you do whenever you have CE weeks, conference weeks, training, things like that, travels. Yeah. Sometimes you do. And even if you've paid it at a different rate or whatever else you want to do, they aren't realizing that non-discretionary bonus has to have an overtime premium attached to it. And I had a client a couple of years ago learn this through a DOL audit. They had actually attended a course that I taught, and they were doing just about everything right, except that part. They had a DOL audit because this was back during the time of the C word, back when employees were given quite a bit of extra time because of the C word that we shall not say during 2020. They were given a certain amount, I think it was like 80 hours back in 2020 that they were able to use for leave if they tested positive. Well, there was a team member who had tested positive earlier that year, and they had already used up all of their time. They tested positive again, and they didn't have any time left. And so the practice, said that they weren't going to pay for the time that they're out. They said, take the time, but we're not going to pay additional because we've already paid what's been required of us, and you're out of PTO. You don't have anything else left from paid leave. So take it, but it's going to be unpaid. So this employee decided to send a text message to what she thought was her friend, calling her boss's wife, who is also a dentist and a co-owner of the practice, a BITC you-know-what, and didn't realize that she sent it to the boss's wife. So they fired her. Yeah, oops. They fired her. And she filed with the Department of Labor saying that she got fired because she had the C word. That was not why she got fired. They ended up winning that unemployment case, but it triggered a DOL audit. So they came in and they assessed their payroll, and they assessed all the things that they look at whenever Department of Labor comes into audit. And it was found that everything was clean, except they had forgotten to pay the discretionary bonus on or the overtime premium on the discretionary bonuses that they had in the practice. And so it was a very, very minor fine, minor amount that they owed the employees, minor penalty, but it is something that does get tracked if anybody comes into audit. And so this is that time of year that I think a lot of practices, whenever they're looking at their end of year bonuses, really need to go back and evaluate their whole bonus structure and making sure that they're following all of those little rules when it comes to paying, making sure that they're tracking overtime, which is a whole other issue about timekeeping and
that's not today's episode.
That is not today's episode. That's a whole other rant, and we'll go down at some other point. But anyway, so bonuses, holiday pay, those are all of the things that I end up talking about this time of year. Handbook updates, that could be its own episode as well. It really just needs to be a one-on-one conversation, honestly, with practices.
Yeah.
But that's what I get to deal with this time of year. How about you?
Well, I mean, when people are busy, especially as every practice is this time of year, I tend to see people rushing through everything. And I get more calls about cybersecurity incidents during this time of year. I get more calls about privacy violations because people are in autopilot or people aren't trained properly.
Quiz the season to get sloppy?
Yeah, it's just we don't take the time to do things right. And then I'll say the other thing is right now, because of the Windows 11 upgrade, I'm getting a lot of IT related questions. Even though I don't do IT anymore, it ties into HIPAA because everything's tied in now at this point. And I will say, yeah, this time of year, especially this year, it's, do I have to replace my old computer, or can I just put Windows 11 on it, or can I do the Windows 10 extension license? And I'm like, look, like, this is not brand new information, guys. It's been out there for years that they were planning on doing this, and you have
I heard about it last year.
right, but suddenly it's, oh my gosh, it's happening now. And it's like, no, this is not a 5 alarm fire. So I actually had a conversation with another IT provider a couple of weeks ago, and they had a client who had replaced half of the computers. They were installing them, and then they still had the other half that they had an order for, but it wouldn't come in before the end of the year, or it couldn't be installed before the end of the year. And so they were freaking out over that, and they considered putting the extended license on during that time. And I was like, oh, no. So here's the deal with that. Just want to clarify. There's multiple things here, so bear with me as I go down these little avenues.
Clarify the extended license part?
So the extended license, Microsoft will allow you to continue using Windows 10. I almost said 7. That's how old I am. I remember upgrading to Windows XP. Elder millennial here. Doing the Windows 10 license, you will still get some level of security updates and patches, which is really the only real need for updates, is for security and for feature patches. That's all updates are. So for that license, I'm not sure how long it actually ends because I haven't had anybody actually go that route. I've always steered people away from that. I think it's like maybe a year, maybe longer. What they did with Windows 7 to Windows 10 was they did that for up to like 18 months, I think. It wasn't a long time. It was enough time to give you the opportunity to replace it. But what I see a lot of offices that did during that time, and I'm seeing it again, they're taking their 5+ year old computers that are old and crappy and slow, and they're adding on an entirely new operating system that has different demands and requirements. And then they're wondering why all their stuff doesn't work. Yeah. So I kind of look at it as over the course of, roughly 5 years. 3 to 5 years is typical lifespan of a computer now, depending on how burly you build it out. And within 5 years, what are you doing in your office? What are you upgrading? Did you get a cone beam? Are you doing AI stuff? Do you have other programs that are integrated inside the office? What sensors, what imaging, all these different things. And now you've got an overloaded computer.
The software that you're using, isn't that going to start only being available really for any of integrations that they have to download, anything like that?
Well, Dental's a little behind the times on that. So we have this problem of you've got the newer version that it doesn't work on yet, even though the vendors have had ample time to get this done. This is an ongoing problem with people not looking at timelines and deadlines. And then there's the other problem of you have the rest of the world and that technology. Say you get a new printer. That printer does not have Windows 10 drivers on it to work. It only has Windows 11. And what if the rest of your office? I saw this with QuickBooks software during that transition, the last one, where if you had I know it's not a thing anymore, but if you had a a downloaded version of
Some
QuickBooks.
people still do.
I know they do. They're older. They're not making new versions of it anymore. It wouldn't work on those. And so to anybody that's listening, if you have not done this upgrade yet, or you are holding out, or you don't understand it, if your computer is 3 to 5 years old and you did not make it incredibly burly, if you didn't spend a whole bunch on it, then you need a new computer with a professional license. I will clarify that you need a professional license. Do not buy the home version that you find online. Do not go to Costco or Best Buy and buy the home version. It will not work with what you're trying to do. So that's kind of my rant. The other one is there are plenty of IT providers out there that are going to do right for you, and they will sell you a solution that is manageable long term, not a transaction right now. And I know that's what we all want. We want the quick, easy fix. It's not going to happen. You have to think long term.
It sounds like they're trying to put a Band-Aid on a broken arm. Like,
yeah,
the extended version sounds like it's just really a stopgap measure of something like what you just said happened, where they ordered them, but they're not there in time. They'll be in by the end of the year. That's not their long-term solution. It's not even their next year solution. Like,
yeah, so their situation was actually very interesting because they were trying. This IT provider, they got it. They had all the other things in place. And I actually started asking questions like, does this office have a firewall? Does it have a subscription on it? Are you monitoring it? Do they have business grade antivirus? Do you do patches and updates for them? What's their backup situation like? And I kind of looked at like the big four of security and cybersecurity, and they were doing all these other things. And I said, well, if you're looking at the grand scheme of prioritization of security that you're providing as an IT provider, the operating systems are a lower priority only if, and I know this is going to get snippeted out there somewhere, and someone's going to quote me as saying, oh, you don't need to do that. Yes, you do. The only way that is not the highest priority, like it was 15 years ago, like it was when going to Windows 7, is if you have a firewall with an active subscription that is monitored, maintained, antivirus, business grade antivirus, monitored, maintained, documented, backups that are done every day and you can restore to in 48 hours. That is tested. Like, these are things that are so, I know I have the background of an IT provider, but I get so passionate about this because I did this even for a one computer office. It can be done and it needs to be part of your budget. And I get so angry because that's how data breaches happen when you start cutting those corners.
There's a question that comes up a lot, and I've asked you this question. Amy, is there a particular antivirus that is recommended when you say business grade antivirus?
Oh, F no. I mean, it drives me nuts. So business grade that does not mess with all your other software or hardware. So, I'm going to take you back 15 years. So when Dentrix, and I normally don't say vendors, but when Dentrix moved to the G series, G2, they had some problems where Norton antivirus would not work on that version. And there was just this all kinds of back and forth. Malwarebytes didn't work. And this was all 15 years ago. Technology's changed drastically. So it's not about what you're using. It's about what functionality it has and if that's falling within the parameters of what you should be doing for compliance. I know, it's a lot. I get very passionate / crazy about this because it is so freaking easy. And that's when all the bad words start to come out because it's not that difficult. I did it for a long time for people that were very cheap.
Oh, I could do a whole episode taunting you on some of those things and being like, so Amy, tell us about the doctors that order their security cameras off Amazon and just connect them to their Wi-Fi's. I know some of your hot buttons, and it's so funny to see you talk
Alexa and operatories to set a timer. That one's fun. Or Nest thermostats, same thing. Just we're in a habit of clicking next, install, and everything is marketed as DIY, and it's not. It's not. So Windows 11, that's my big buzzword right now for this time of year.
I know we're at the end of our time today. I appreciate you, listeners, for hanging out with us while we nerd out on compliance. This is what we do. Honestly, you are truly getting a look at what being on the phone between myself and Amy looks like. Usually it's like late at night and we look down and it's been like 2.5 hours and we're still going on whatever this topic is. And so you get yours capped at just the short 30 or so minutes. But definitely come back for more. And in the meantime, stay compliant AF.